Well, what's going to happen in the future is that people are going to be more and more disconnected. And if I'm not mistaken, I think everybody can agree, we have this like Americana modern successful figure. Originally it was embodied by a man at some point, right? Successful, money, riches, condos, vacations, beaches, whatnot, and surrounded by women, and right? And now that's become the ideal for everybody. Man and woman strive for this kind of symbol of success or empowerment. So it's kind of funny, you know? Women are becoming like men. Well, it's a certain kind of man. I've spoken about this at length in my different videos. This like psychopathic mindset. It's insane. It's disconnected from reality. A man that doesn't care or has a heart for what's true is no man, he's sick. As I've said numerous times, yang has at its core yin. So this model of masculinity is yang without yin. In other words, it's dumb. It has no sensation. It doesn't feel. It doesn't perceive. It doesn't know what it's doing, for what reason, no matter what it invents to itself. And both men and women are now identifying to this newborn archetype to find some kind of empowerment, strength, and accomplishment. The reality is both are miserable, both are suffering, disease is growing. And underneath all of this, there's people who are realizing that this is not working and are curious and want to discover, or rediscover will be the better word. Well, what is man and woman really about? This is what this channel is about. Well, if this is a mess, and what the previous generation knew was a prelude to this mess, whether it's Christianity or another religion or another, right? All of this led to this mess. So what is a genuine, healthy relationship between a man and a woman? And that's why I say all the time, well, you need to rediscover those powers. Masculine power, feminine power. Not in an ideal form, not in a fantasy form, not in a dream form. You have to actually reconnect to those energies. They live inside of you, and that's a journey. And the issue is that there's so much junk in the way that it makes the journey quite difficult, challenging, painful, and society is not there to facilitate it. But there's more and more people who are curious because they feel that no matter what they accomplish in this pseudo-idealized human, it's miserable. So where else should we go? So they want to go back to the origin. They want to go back to the start. But how? So you have New Agers who have these ideals, the divine goddess, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. This is dumb as fuck. It's ideas, romanticized. I'm not interested in romance. I'm not interested in romanticized fantasies. I'm interested in reality. Well, clearly, nature has created a man. Because some sociologists will say, well, masculinity is a social construct. Yeah, absolutely. An archetypal man from this age dresses and behaves and thinks. It's a construct, yeah, because it's mentally induced. But at the essence, from a natural point of view, there is such a thing as a man, just like there's a masculine lion and there's a feminine lioness, or a doggy and a bitch. So there is an essence of masculinity, it's biological. And there's an essence of femininity and it's biological also. So that's why I say, I romanticize ideals of what femininity and masculinity is. It doesn't work. So some people may have a curiosity, but that requires them to go to the root of the human experience. We're talking about root. First chakra, second chakra, if we were going to speak of chakras. And I don't like to speak about chakras. But anyways, some of you will understand what I'm trying to say. And this scares the living shit out of people because that means you need to reconnect to your animalness. And when I say animal, I'm not saying this in a pejorative way, meaning animal, horrible creature, dumb, stupid. No, I'm talking about like primal. Primal without the conditioning. Now, nowadays, nobody really knows what that looks like. Everybody's confused, and more importantly, everyone's scared. The human, for me, a human is an animal. It's just an animal. The human animal, once it grows into maturity, is what you call a human being. It has access to so much, including its own self and the nature of reality. That's how it's designed. But if we speak of an animal today, the human animal, people are mortified of what that means. And they have these ideas that it's like bestial. And remotely, when the mental conditioning due to culture or religious beliefs and whatnot is kind of like broken, how do people behave? Like animals. But even animals, it's unfair to the animals because the animals don't behave that way. Which shows to say that, what I'm trying to say is that there's a fundamental fear in rediscovering that human primalness. And in my humble opinion, without rediscovering what is a man at the root and what is a woman at the root, there is no way that we can achieve some kind of harmony between the sexes or the genders, man and woman, ever again. Right? So a lot of people in this day and age, everything is served to you. You go to a restaurant, they bring you the perfect meal. You don't have to farm, you don't have to grow food, you don't have to take it out of the earth, you don't have to clean it, you just, here it is. So everybody in our generation wants everything done easily. Well, that's perhaps the calling of our generation for some who will receive the call. Well, maybe our job is to go back to the field of the human body, and clean out the mess and toil to rediscover what's at the root of our humanity, man and woman, in order for a future to be possible for the next generations. Because the future is very clear. As it is set now, it's very easy to understand. Look at it. Men and women hate each other. Machines now fill the lives of everybody in consumption. Now you have a computer that can talk to you. In a couple of minutes, you can fuck it. That's the future. Let's be straight. Okay? So if that's the future, it can only get worse. Which means that there's a growing need for, well, if that's not what life is about, then what is? So some people may be called to go on that journey, and it's not going to be easy for them because it's not made. It's like the pioneers of anything, pioneers of hip-hop. They didn't know. Nothing exists. They kind of have to figure it out. And a couple of generations down, it's kind of easy. You know exactly how to use the turntables. The technology is there. There's a basic sound, and you can take it and just like amp it up and just go with it. Perhaps, this is just me thinking out loud, perhaps our generation, or the next one or two or three, are there to do the hard labor so that there's a new possibility available. But you have to work. You have to deal with this. You have to. It's like your forefathers who had to go from out west, before train tracks, before everything, all the conveniences. They have to make an effort. They have to toil. They have to cut trees. They have to suffer. And they're doing this for whatever reason, but at some level we can say they're doing this so that their progenies have a better life. Perhaps this is an invitation to our generation, because if you don't do that, well, I'm not a doomsday kind of person because I know exactly what's going on, but what I'm trying to say is that, let's say perhaps if we don't do this, it could mean the end of the human species as we know. Now, I don't believe this, I just needed to say it the way it would be said on YouTube. The end of the human race. Is it the end of, right? I don't believe that because I'm in tune with something else, but nevertheless you understand what I'm trying to say. And those who say no, and they're called by a deeper voice, well, they're going to have to do the toil. They're going to have to go to the West Coast. They're going to have to make an effort. And nothing is constructed for them. Maybe that is our great cause. Who knows? One thing is for sure, if that's not done, well, there's a very clear track to where the humans are going. So somebody's got to do this. Somebody's has got to do this, because that knowledge needs to be reclaimed. And it cannot be the fantasized version of it. Fantasy is metaverse. It's your own personal metaverse, and then computers are going to simulate it for you, and you're going to live in it. It's not real. What is it really a man, and what is it really a woman? As per nature's design, because nature is always at the base, Yeah, but look, it's 2023 and nature is now looking like an iPhone. Yeah, but it's still nature. So what is a man and woman at a natural primal level now dressed up as the common era 2023? Because you have to adapt. Now that's an interesting question. Of course, this is my primary interest, because I don't see anything else more interesting, more important, and more extraordinary as a journey. It's really a journey towards the heart of your humanity. What is a human being as per design of Dharma? Not like you're coming from a fucking monkey that this bullshit science wants to sell to people because you came out of an explosion and you're a monkey, and here you are a couple of thousand years later living in a condo watching YouTube. Now, I don't buy this. I'm sure there's an element of reality to it, but I don't buy this at all. There's something much more complex and much more profound, but your average scientist and your modern day science doesn't care for metaphysics, doesn't care for what's great. It's only interested in it's a little material science. So what I'm trying to say here is pretty simple. Some people will be called to go towards this, and there's nothing greater than that. And it takes us to the heart of being a human being, and it takes us to the question, well, what's a human being? Who designed a human being? For what purpose? And how is a human being, when it's properly aligned, how does it live as a man? And how does it live as a woman? And how do they live in collaboration together? According to the specific time that we're in. Because we will not change that in 10 years or in 20 years. Now, I cannot tell you the future, but let's pretend that the trend continues. Things will just get more and more computerized. So how does a genuine, real human being live in a computerized world? I don't know. It's possible, because nothing's impossible for nature. However, we'll have to discover that. Everybody asks, so if it's not what's the future? Nobody knows. That's it. Nobody knows. It's an adventure. It's for us to discover. What are the founding principles on which you establish your life? What is the intent that you serve? And how is that intent going to express itself or manifest itself in this day and age? I don't know. Nobody fucking knows. Nobody knows. This is my humble opinion. There's a bunch of people who want to talk about the Great Reset, and they can map out how it's going to look. I don't think so. I don't think you could know exactly how it's going to look like. You can have a sense of where you want it to go, but how would you know? Until it's done, you don't know what's going to happen. So the future of humanity is, how do we know? When these super technologies are launched onto the world, we don't know what happens. How do people behave? How do we know? We've never done it before. Before there was electricity, how would we imagine the world? We couldn't imagine what happens after. You couldn't imagine how the world would become before the advent of the internet. You couldn't imagine how the world would be before. So we're entering a new shift, which is exponentially bigger in my opinion. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't care. I'm not worried about this. I have faith. I have no doubt in the future. And I'm following the flow and going where it's taking me, and that's it. But I don't know. We don't have a sense of security like a few generations back we may have had, because you can tell what tomorrow is going to bring. Right? We have no idea. Nobody knows. So you have to face that uncertainty. Everybody does. After this COVID nonsense, nobody knows what's going to happen to the world. They arrested the humanity for a year and a half or 2 years. That's never happened before. How could you ever go back to life normal thinking that everything is fine? It's not. If that happened, what else could happen? Nothing now can be taken for granted. And this is not to speak about, I don't want to talk about this, is to say the future with its technologies and how it will affect human beings creates a total, who knows? Even if, let's pretend they're social engineers who have a sense of what's going on. They've never lived in the world. Let's pretend that they know that they're going to create central USD, what is it called? Central currency, digital currency. Right, let's pretend all these things are real, which they are, but let's pretend. Nobody knows, they don't know what it is to live in that world. They can only speculate or imagine. but they've never had the experience. You don't know what it is to have a computer that can answer all your questions, that can write your essays, that can think for you, and can do a job better than you. What happens to you then? What happens to people? What do you transform into? Nobody knows. But one thing is for sure. It's going away from the root. I think that's pretty obvious to see. But the root is so far gone, we don't even know what the root is. And the little semblance of roots that we kind of used to have, such as there's such a thing as a man and a woman, even that's being erased. So one thing is for sure, the future is unknown. So, great. Enjoy. This is what's in front of you. And some of us are, well, I'm concerned in the sense that I don't want to have children in a world where this is the only alternative. Listen, you're going to be a robot. In fact, you're going to be grown in a machine. I don't want to be part of that. That doesn't interest me. I'm interested in an alternative. And the alternative that I'm seeking for is not anti-establishment. No, I'm not anti-anything. I don't care. How things are is supposed to be this way. However, I believe there should be an alternative. And if I'm endowed with the imagination or the vision of it, therefore it must exist and can exist and should exist, and I'm going to dedicate myself to it. And this is what I'm trying to share with you to the best of my capacity, because there should be an alternative. But what is it? I don't know. How do we know anything? This has never happened before. The modern woman is unable to have children. For the modern woman to have a child, it's equal to a rape and violence. She's not made for it. Less and less, her body has become frail, unable to bear such level of intensity, such primal intensity. The common human being spends, I don't know, let's say 50, 60, 70% of his time living in a digital world. That means your mind is somewhere and your body is here, sitting or walking or passive. That's never happened before. Let's say you have to plow the land. Your mind is thinking about what you're doing. This is a connection. The modern world, with all its luxuries, where are people? They live in a world that's not here. So their body is parked here and their mind is elsewhere. So that creates a transformation in the physiology of things. It's breeding a different kind of human. This human, as far as I know, has never existed before. So that person now is no longer the same biological woman you had 100 years ago or 2,000 years ago. It's a different kind of creature. And for that creature, bearing children may be overbearing. And that's a reality. And bearing children is like lifting weights. That means from a generation to the next, your mom has children, her mom had children, her grandmother, so that they practice. And then that means every time you have a child and that intensity passes you, it's like punching something. Your body becomes stronger for it, and stronger for it, and stronger for it. And it adapts, and you transmit this to the next generation. So now we're on the decline. Less, less, less. So you're not going to have a child, or maybe you're going to barely have one with 5 abortions, and then you're going to transmit this to a child. That child is born out of 5 abortions. That's a weak person. That's weak. That's not a normal kid. That comes from a womb that was raped 5 times. Raped. It's not the right word. I don't know the word. It's like that a womb that had to endure something that is out of this world. As far as nature is concerned, it's like an alien coming in and removing the child from its seat and throwing it in the toilet. So it's a form of aggression for the body, and the body will respond, of course, to this. It's like a deer looking at headlights. What the fuck is this? It's kind of the same for the body. So for the next generations, the capacity for the human body to procreate in a traditional way is declining, and at the same time, the capacity to endure endless entertainment, endless raveries of the mind increases. right? Let's watch 12 hours of I don't know which show. No, but that's a fucking feat, man. That's an accomplishment. Okay, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to start over tomorrow. Listen, normal people couldn't do that. I got to move. What do you mean move? This is a meditation. Just take it in. And you have to proper diet to hold you in that position. That's a lot of job. That's a lot of work. Even as kids, we'd watch TV 1, 2, 3 hours. We're like, okay, man, we can't go. We go play hockey for an hour or 2 or 3, run, hit something, I don't know what, then try to go back to TV again. Maybe right now we're talking about like 12 hours. Like, that's an accomplishment. That's the new generation. That's what the new generation is able to do. So I'm not sure how the question started. It was you feeling sorry for the modern women because this is not normal. I absolutely know exactly what you mean. I'm just taking a different angle to respond to it because it's fun for me to just point things out. We're birthing a new kind of human. And for a human being to be able to, listen, if the world becomes digital, everything is digitalized. It takes a certain kind of mind. It takes a certain kind of brain. Like if once upon a time, let's pretend that we're men and we go hunt, you need to have skills that are passed down so that you can hunt effectively, efficiently, and survive and bear this kind of strain. So if the new generation lives in a digital world, that's their way. If they don't do that, they're not going to survive. So it's not a question of physical strength now. It's something, a capacity to endure a certain kind of stress at another level. So that's their mechanism to survive. All I'm trying to say is that this is creating a new type of human. And who and what they are, I don't know, but we can kind of start to see them. You can see those kids walking around. They're kind of fucking weird. Yeah. They're kind of weird. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with that thing, man? It's like living in TV all the time. You kind of want to slap it. Anyways, it's not the point. The point is that something new is arising. And as I'm saying, this is taking humanity in a very clear direction. But at the same time, in a parallel dimension, there's a call to a return to origin. But when I say a return to origin, I'm not speaking about going back in time. I'm saying rediscovering the origin and how it can express itself in this modern day. I don't believe we're going to go back in time. Who the hell would want to do that? No, but that origin wants to reawaken and start to grow and find a way through all of this technological blah. So this is a calling that we started this series with this. It's a calling, and some people are hearing the calling. And maybe that's their destiny. I don't know. It's my field of interest, without a doubt. Because anything else is like, well, what's the point? I don't see the point. My future is not to become the greatest entertainment in the metaverse. Like Logan Paul. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm designed to do. Right? And think for a second. Imagine the people who will live 200 years from now, who live in those machines. How far the teachings of nature and of life itself, how far they will be. Like it's quite something. How far. And these teachings, they cannot die. They will never die because they're at the essence of life itself. So, but one thing is for sure, if you're going to tell them about how it was 500 years ago, they're going to laugh at you. Fuck you, man. You're crazy. Who the fuck wants to be there? Now, so the teachings, a living teaching has to always adapt itself to the common era. It's alive. It's not the old version. It's not what was written it's not the newspaper from 10 years ago or 1,000 years ago. It's the newspaper of the now. Reporting the news of the now. And the only news that is dharma, the current of life, the power. And now how does it want to express itself in this day and age? And how can it reach or serve people who are looking for it? But it has to adapt itself to the common era. But one thing is for sure, these are going to be funny people. That's for sure. I think that sex for the new generation is mostly mental. It's based on ideas and pictures and mental simulations. The young guy who's 15 watches porn and his sexuality has been aroused by pictures. And when he walks in the street, let us say for the time being, they walk in the street and meet a woman, that's not a woman, it's a woman who's portraying a picture and he's aroused by the picture that she's portraying. So it's mostly mental already, sexuality today. People are aroused by ideas, eroticisms. They don't know what it is to be embodied. Number one, to even feel the energy of their own biology circulating, and how in the presence of a person of the opposite sex, the kind of polarity or awakening that does. They have no idea. What they have is tension instead of relaxation. They're not embodied, they're disembodied, and they live in a fantasy world and an idea of themselves. And it's, if they're lucky, an idea of themselves meets another idea of themselves, right? And there's a form of attraction to the idea, but the bodies are totally like crisp. This is your modern day sexuality for the most part. It's extremely violent. There's no respect. Nobody respects anyone. It's not, I'm not saying this bad you don't respect, no. Men don't respect themselves, women don't respect themselves, nobody respects sexuality, and they're interacting with one another to find some kind of release or some kind of food, but they don't even know what's motivating them. And on top of that, you have like the strings of culture playing, right? And it's extremely violent. It's a violent experience for most people and extremely unpleasant. And a lot of people say, after this, I don't want to do this, even though you try. It's like the outcome is always pain and suffering. I feel like shit. I feel dirty. It hurts on top of that. And I don't find real enjoyment in it. Right? So, if you know anything about women, women take quite some time to relax. And unless they relax, they don't reach an orgasmic state. I'm not talking about rubbing. I'm talking about like that their body becomes like sparkly. Men can come with tension, and that's the outcome. That's the end all and be all of your average masculine sexuality is ejaculation. And you can just tense him up and he'll come. But that's not sexuality either. And you have these two creatures that meet, very confused. Well, yeah, that's going to be an unpleasant experience for both, but particularly for the woman, who really requires a space to relax, exhale, come into herself, and whereas the guy can just ejaculate and that'll be the end of that. It's also very violent for him, but less consciously, because he's an idiot. So they don't want to hang out. So they go into their little personal bubbles, their little personal box. They go live in their computers, their fantasies with their pictures, and they get aroused by these ideas. And they love chit-chatting with the person on the computer where they can fill all the space with their fantasies, right? I'm talking to a person. I can imagine whatever I want them to look like. And then the person can show whatever they want, and we can have whatever kind of dialogue that we want. It's all mental, isn't it? I think that's the future. And at the end of the day, you're going to have machines that are going to be able to trigger the sexual sensations that you want and generate the images that you want, the way you want, with the corresponding sensation in your body. This is the future. So, if you can't see that, it's because you're blind. And I'm trying to say something very important. As this trend is increasing, the further away we go from nature and reality, the more that there's a calling, that there's an awakening there. There's a necessity for it to re-emerge and represent itself to a new generation of people. So that's why I don't feel gloomy. Oh, poor people. No, there's no poor people. This is the way of life. This is where things are going. But an alternative also is being birthed. And it's going to call in people who have an interest to rediscover those primal energies and do the necessary work, because everybody's fucked up. Let's be straight. Everybody's really fucked up. And nobody has a sense of how profoundly fucked up they are. And sexuality is extremely taboo because sexuality awakens and heightens everything that's inside of you, especially what's unconscious. So people are very scared of genuine sexuality because it sparks up everything. And it sparks up the unconscious. And very few people want to deal with that. And society is scared of those primal energies. But there are some people who have an interest in rediscovering this, because if you don't do that, well, it's like you're going to lose something forever. That's not going to happen. It's impossible. But technically, that's what's going to happen. It's like it's going to be sealed. So there are people who have an interest in such work. We can call this healing work or whatever, by whatever name you want, where we're peeling off the madness, the confusion, and helping humans, starting with ourselves, to reconfigurate and remember ourselves, which allows an organic, genuine sexuality to reawaken and start circulating within ourselves, in our bodies, and eventually can be potentized with a partner. But this is obviously for a few people, because most people don't care for this. But that's not important. And through that process, those of us who are engaged in such a journey, we discover the nature of disease. We understand people suffering because we're no different than them. We understand the process of detoxing our minds from this filth and this madness, the process of remembering ourselves, which is quite difficult. It's not easy and can be very painful. And this is connected to our ancestors, because the past isn't as sunny as we'd like to imagine. It's also full of fucking trauma and pain and heartaches and whatnot. So all this has to, we undertake a healing journey to go to the root of that. Well, what's a human being and what's natural, healthy sexuality? And now how does that express itself in this modern day and age? So as you go through that journey, eventually you'll be able to provide a service to people who have an interest to this. Or share certain kind of insights and teachings that are accessible for more people. But there has to be something real about it. Not just fluffy fluff, Jesus and Magdalene in a fantasy world. No, I'm sorry, we got to say this. Like a fantasized word of a perfect universe which was matriarchal. Get the fuck out of here. Okay, let's cut the crap. I'm not interested in fantasies. You know what I mean? Fantasies don't resolve any problem. They're opiates, and it just makes things worse. So that's not my field of interest. You always bring us to the question, what could it be? And we are at a phase in the history of humanity where everything can be constructed. If you have a vision and you have the fortitude, the clarity, the strength, the resilience, the courage to build it, then build it. And it can be that. This is what the future holds. The majority of the people are going into the default system, which is the machine world. But for other people who aspire for something else, as long as they respect the overall system and its hierarchy and you respect the rules, the system doesn't care how you want to live and if you want to live an alternative lifestyle. So in other words, whatever you want to build, you can. That's what the future holds, at least in potential. But, like I said, your average individual is being funneled into the machine. And you're going to be plugged into the machine on a full-time basis. Yeah, but others, they don't want that. Alternative communities and whatnot. Well, what's stopping you from building whatever you aspire to? Different models of relationships, different models of lifestyle, different models. Great, that's exactly what I'm doing for myself. But you got to build it from the scratch. Well, that's not easy. How do you build a community? What is a community? What brings a community together? How do you grow a community? All this, it's somehow being rediscovered. So that's why I said at some point, and I'm not sure it's going to be edited in, the future is unknown, and it's, well, everything's possible. It depends on who you are, and if you have the wherewithal to construct it and build it and surround yourself with people who want the same thing and aspire to the same thing and share the same values and want to create, keyword, create that lifestyle for yourselves and whoever comes after you. This is the future. Everything is being rebuilt. The world as we know today is going to be very different in 10 years. Some people say you will not even recognize it. I have to see it to believe it, but I understand what they're saying. But once again, I'm not there to even imagine it. You could not imagine in 1992 that in 2010 everybody would be plugged in to the fucking internet, right? So it's the same. But that world is to be constructed. And it's a new world on the other side. So everything can be created technically or potentially if you know how to do it. You have the capacity to do it, and you don't live in fantasy world, and you actually make things. You do real things in the real world. Those who are not able to do real things in the real world and interact with real people in the real world are going to live in the machine world. And they're going to have the ideal best version of that, whatever that is. But the rest of us, well, just like it's a new world waiting for you on the other side, well, build it. And the next hundreds of years, I don't want to say thousands, are going to be built on what's on the other side. And you get to be the founding people for these future communities. You. If you have the vision and the integrity to be able to do it. Well, that's what I see when I look towards the future. I don't see doom and gloom. I see that it's something. And yeah, in a way, it's a goddamn fucking prison. But we're already in a goddamn zoo. It's a super zoo. It's the next version of a zoo. I understand. Everybody's going to have to adapt. Fine, I understand. But also, what do I see? Immense opportunities for wealth. And if you understand the system and you're not against the system, and you're not fighting against the system doesn't give a fuck about you. As long as you are respecting its trajectory, and you don't create a disruption, it doesn't mind that you have an alternative life as long as you're able to provide to it something. And I'm here to serve. I serve everything, even so-called devils. I'm here to serve. I serve every expression of life, including the system. I have nothing against it. It serves its purpose because people are addicted and need it. Without the system, most people wouldn't be able to function. It requires a certain kind of a level of health that they don't have to be able to bear that life force. So the system is there. I understand this, I respect that. So what am I trying to say to conclude? The future is whatever you want it to be. If you have the capacity to create something else, and you're an actual creator, and you understand the principles of creation, that means you need actual sexual energy, and you need to combine your energy with other people so that you can harness more. Well, if you can do that, you can create whatever you'd like. However, if you're stupid to be against the system's not going to tolerate you because we are in a zoo. It belongs all to the system. The system will tolerate alternative communities as long as the alternative communities respects the master, dare I say. Not the real master, but the master. Great. That's why that basic, you need to format. If you are interested to go to the other side, you need to understand that. If you're against this system, you're going to always be in systems coming after you. It doesn't accept dissidents. However, on the other side, once you genuinely understand where it's going, why it's doing what it's doing, on the other side, well, there's all kinds of possibilities. Whatever lifestyle you want to live, if you can create it, you can. But you got to know how. So I see the future as full of opportunities. And the world I'm going to live and the world I'm going to build for myself and for the next generations is not separated from the main world. No. It's like, it's one. You can't, it's like, imagine let's pretend you're like 18 years old and you don't know the internet. How the fuck are you going to function? How are you going to do business? Everything's on the internet nowadays, or almost everything. So it's not alternative communities that are secluded from reality, modern reality, small r, right? No. We have our lifestyle, we respect our lifestyle, but we can interoperate with other domains. You respect yourself, you can interact with another person in a diplomatic way to have positive, useful exchanges for both parties and whatnot, and you go back to your group, your community, your world. That you can continue to grow while respecting where the world is heading and the trends. Well, the world is going towards the machine world. Well, what do you want me to do? Pretend it's not? It is. Can I not use the machines to create stuff to my advantage? Of course I can. Can I not create algorithms myself? Of course I can. Can I not? Of course I can. You can also. But you have to have an open mind and enough maturity not to be scared. And I don't live in that kind of fear. I don't believe in this. Because at the base of my life, there's a current of life, let's call it Dharma power. And Dharma power is what births everything, including this madness. And the madness is intelligent. It's not by coincidence. It's a result of a primary lesion. I've spoken about it endlessly. There's an intelligence to it. And it's how Kali Yuga is expressing itself. It must be. So I respect. But there's another potential. And I have access to that potential. And so do you if you're willing to do the work. And I am willing to do the work. And I hope you will also be willing to do the work. And I want to build my life established in that truth. And that truth doesn't exclude any other. However, it doesn't forsake itself for something that's false. I do not sell my soul for a fucking hat. But I can have myself and put a fucking hat on. If you understand what I'm trying to say. So what the modern world is offering you is stuff you add. But if you don't have yourself and that becomes yourself, you're fucked. But if you have yourself, well, what do you care? You put a hat, you wear a digital costume. Who cares? Instead of going to town, you go to the metaverse. It's always the same fucking thing. It's going to be always the same thing. Right? It's show. It's a theater. What do I care? I'm going to the hot spot to go trade. So I'm going to look proper. I'm going to look G, of course. And I'm going to do my things and go back to my affairs. I don't have a problem with anything. I flow. And that's the key to health. You got to flow, which doesn't make me stupid. I see. I'm clear. That's all I got to say for now. Thank you.